All right, so moving forward, I just want to reemphasize that we are planning on growing the AAC membership and your involvement. And I think this was an old slide from last year, so I apologize. But we are using the process of everything we do. We will learn from all past mistakes, including having a larger format for meetings. All right. So the next person who will be talking today is Katie Wardell. She has done such an enormous amount of work for us in terms of data collection, being insightful and thoughtful about everything that we do, and has worked very hard to support today's information and getting arranging the ballot that we'll be sending out. And I just, if she could hear a big hand clapping, I would be giving that to her. But take it away, Casey, and tell us everything you know.
Thank you so much, Liz. So I'm not sure how many of us actually understand what the Practice Act actually means and how it's going to be important to us as a community looking forward, not only to the next 2 years, but then the 7 years beyond that. So in the next 10 minutes, I kind of want to give a really high overview and then go into a little bit of the details we're going to look at. I definitely encourage all of you as I go through this, if there's like a point of place of like, oh, I know something about that, or I can help that, file that in the back of your memory or the back of your mind. At some point in time in the next 6 months, we're hoping to put working groups around a lot of these ideas. And as Liz kind of said, how we're trying to move the board to being more agile, but at the same time, more inclusive. So a little bit about how the stakeholder process went. I'm sure many of you got emails and Facebook posts and everything. We did six internal stakeholder meetings throughout the state of Colorado, and each one was slightly different, had different, one was at a clinic, one was a bar, one was at libraries. We luckily had Senator Janal come to one of them and a representative coming to one of those. And so that's great. That's kind of they listened to a lot of what we said, and Senator Janal really gave a lot of viewpoints on what I'm going to talk about too. So this is kind of the attendee list. So next slide.
Easy for you to say. All right.
So basically generalization of the actual stakeholder meetings. The big topics that were discussed were, one, obviously, what is our Practice Act? What is a Sunset Review, and what do we need to address? Because there were many, because we got to get together and actually talk. Also, what were talked about a lot were different networking ideas with CMS and different marketing opportunities in a perfect world that we ideally will get to. And then lastly, what came up almost in every meeting is information about the VA insurance rehabilitation, CMS, the federal study, and both the opportunities and the costs, and there's a lot of discussion on these, and that's why I think what Mark and Tuesday have done with and Laura Lee have done with the opioid work, it really goes to some of these areas of discussion of us getting better and equal reimbursement. So the rest of the talk will be specifically about Practice Act. So looking at our Sunset Review of Practice Act, just we have to remember this Practice Act is actually what gives us the right to practice in the state of Colorado. And we can, DORA will actually do the process themselves, but we're going to support them through all of that. And the official process starts in October. These regulations are laid out annually or every 7 years, and that's what our Practice Act is. Okay, next slide. The challenge really we face when I'm going to go over the definitions that our current act is really, but really the big challenges we face is becoming more in line with other medical professions. It's really important that in our current Practice Act, thanks to the work of all the people who came before us, we really have a good Practice Act. It's, even though when we go into this, there's going to be some things I think that obviously need changing. We want to really maintain the broadness of what we do, clarify what's possible, and not codify anything unless necessary. So the biggest thing that, next slide, biggest thing we talked about is basically what is a definition of acupuncture. A state, in the Colorado state law, acupuncture, this is what it means. Acupuncture means a system of healthcare based upon traditional and modern, thank you, Valerie, oriental medical concepts, and employs oriental methods of diagnosis, treatment, and adjunctive therapies for the promotion, maintenance, and restoration of health for the prevention of disease. And then the actual definition of acupuncture is this really long thing, which I'm not going to read, but it goes into more the specifics. One thing that, you know, Jessica Silverman or Jessica pointed out during the Gunnison meeting is, and we've all talked about, is that in this, you can notice that there's very little actual biomedical, physiology mentions of putting a needle into a body. And so clearly that's something we have to look at, especially in light of what has happened in the last about 2 years ago, but on and off for the last 3 years. Next slide. Where dry needling in the state of Colorado was ruled not to be acupuncture. And this is unfortunate, obviously. I know a lot of people put in so much hard work to not have this happen. And, so I think this is maybe something we need to know is real. So this is what PTs put, and you can see they put it. So next page, changes in the landscape. I think the biggest thing that was identified, and this was unique to the stakeholder process, it's really been identified recently, is the pointing out that there's so many growing number of practitioners holding doctorate degrees, and then what is that going to mean for our biomedical trainings and scope definition. I think the biggest, also one other thing that really we have to look at, and this isn't going to be awesome to any of us, but there are more professions beyond PTs looking to add acupuncture to their scope of practice, which is why we have to get a good definition. This, not in the state of Colorado as far as we know, but certain states, nurses are looking for adding it. Medical athletic trainers in the state of Colorado are looking. So this is something we have to get right in the next 2 years. And ideally hope all of the work we're doing with the new everything will get us in good line. So next slide.
You want to talk about the labs?
Oh, just briefly that this is something that keeps coming up in our scope growth, is a place where we want to do labs. And I think something in the landscape that has changed is there's so many more people, so many more availability of labs and people where they can order online, which should give us more credibility if we decide to add labs. I mean, there's a great debate about that. And even at the stakeholder meetings, I think a lot of people mostly liked the gray area we have now, but we have to clearly look at that further. So again, kind of beyond those, the other things that came up these meetings, state of Colorado doesn't require any CEUs. Again, is this good? Maybe. Is this bad? We don't know. The one thing that we did come up was that doctors, MDs in the state of Colorado also don't require, as of at least last year, don't require any CEUs for their training either. And they're the only state in the United States that allows that, that's true for. Interesting point.
And Casey, I do have a question for you.
Yep.
I'm sorry. It says, is there a plan to copy the chiropractic definition of acupuncture?
Yes, and I'm not. We're going to look at we're not going to look at that. That has yet to be determined. It was supposed to be a slide, but as I was cutting this out, that's the one that got cut. So there's a couple we're modeling. Jessica has done some really good work on doing that, and the chiropractor one is a very simple one, obviously, that we'll look at.
Point of order.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah, I think the general idea is we're looking also in other states too. Through the ASA, we have that ability to talk with other states and really get an idea of what's working well in other states too. And this is just we are looking at this like other professions do currently, where they have connection with other states and they discuss things and they look at the legislature that works in those local regions too. So I would say that it's not just what's working in Colorado for the chiropractors in the small section, it's what does the big view look like and what's going to work well for us in Colorado.
Thank you, Mark. And I do actually have another question, if this is okay, Casey, to take right
Great,
now.
I love it.
Great. So it says 2 items of input. This is from Elena Combs. One, can we please modify Oriental with either Eastern first choice or Asian second choice? Oriental is quickly being mentioned as culturally insensitive. And 2, would want to add both labs and imaging.
Yep. And that's why I just wanted to highlight where we're at. Obviously, that needs to be changed and will be. And we're definitely looking into both labs. Imaging may be more challenging, and that's a working group that we may look at. Cool. Go back real quick.
Okay.
We talked director board model, which we can get into later, and then a lot of that came up as how we're going to work with CMS, which is the Colorado Medical Society, as well as maintaining, and if not, ideally maintaining and potentially looking at scope growth beyond that. For injections, again, same answer. This is a working group. This is simply what came up at the stakeholder meeting. There were no decisions made on this. I'm trying to present facts of what came up at the stakeholder meeting. There have been no decisions made on any of this. Great. All right. So then this is, again, what's changed, obviously, in light of COVID. The reporting procedures, just to highlight, those were already going to happen, some of these, and it's being made across the board with a lot of different healthcare practitioners. So look for that in the next 6 months to 9 months. Obviously, we're going to have to look at some different sanitizing, hopefully not patient separation. And obviously, we can easily codify telehealth now that most of us are doing it. I think one thing why I put this in there is because we have to remember that the world looks different than it did 2 months ago, and for better for us, and some opportunities and some challenges. We are going to be going through our stakeholder process when a lot of people are thinking about these new, how do we keep things clean? And obviously with our CNT and our OSHA protocol, it should be sufficient, sufficient plus a little bit, which obviously Valerie and Steve are going to go into later today. But we're hoping not to have to codify any of those in our Practice Act, but we're going to do the best we can. And then where do we go now? Basically, we're going to do external stakeholder meetings, which, so again, alluding to these working groups we're talking about, and then meeting with chiropractors, physical therapists, pharmacists, pediatrics, labs, anyone who has say in how we're going to practice. Dora is going to put a list together and meet with them separately that we have no control of, but we would like to do some meetings with them beforehand so we know what they're going to say. So that's the big what's going to happen in the next 14 months.
All right. Okay, Casey, amazing. Does anybody else have any questions for Casey before we move on to the next part of our fun today?
I don't see any other questions at this time, so I think we're good to move forward. Thanks for that pause.
All right. Thank you, Casey. That was amazing. And thank you for emphasizing that we are gathering information and gathering people to help. All right, so next person, Dr. Timothy Slusher is joining us from Gunnison, and she has worked very hard on this with support from the board, but I will let her start presenting. And let me know when you're ready to change slides.
Okay, Timothy, not Timothy. Thanks, Liz. That's okay.
Did I say Timothy?
Yeah.
Maybe I was mumbling.
I think you're mumbling. Okay, we made a lot of changes, and I would like to throw out a thank you to Adam Wasserman. He is our language expert, and a lot of this is really just cleaning up some things. Some other changes did need to be made, however, and we can see today how important that is, that we made some changes, especially to the way that we vote and run some meetings. Our bylaws are outdated, and we are now in a high-tech world, and so thank you everyone for putting up with suspending, or it's just interpreting bylaws to be what they are, so we can kind of get out of this catch-22 that we're in today. Next slide. Let's start talking about these. Okay, board of directors. What we're trying to do is decrease the size. Let me see if I pull these up a little bit. Our board is big, and sometimes we find that a smaller board can be run more efficient. So, any questions? If anyone wants to just type in the chat directly to me so I can see those questions and kind of answer them as we're going through these. I'm going to keep it quite short. We've got a pretty good explanation that we posted and send out an email to everybody before this. So next slide, please. Annual
Point of order, please.
Adam?
Okay, so I've been looking into how we can expand this meeting to include more participants. We have made a very quick decision to add a webinar plan to our AAC Zoom account. And we are currently setting up the webinar for the town hall that's following this meeting. And we're setting one up for this meeting. So I would like to make a motion to all the available participants to suggest closing this meeting and relocating it to the webinar so that we can expand the number of available participant slots.
Can I get a second on that? And then could Mark type up a poll?
We don't have to do a poll. We've got yes and, well, yeah, I guess, because we could have abstain too. All right, I'll work on the poll.
Okay,
Well, I mean, really, I guess this is really just making it so everybody can get in.
Yeah, and as Mark works on that, I just want to say there is a question from Scott Richardson to Moni about, it says last year and this year we had more people want to join the board, and just a question about why limit it. So I know you spoke a little bit to that earlier, but could you speak to that again?
Yes, and we're just looking for efficiency. So yes, more people want to join the board, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a board can run efficiently. When we are trying to talk to 15 different people, it's a fairly large board. Then it's hard to keep moving forward. We tend to start spinning wheels when you start to get more voices in, and instead of getting things moving forward. So what we want to do though is increase our committee membership so we have more people actually working on things. That's the future vision of this board. So we have committees and we have people working on things, and then we have more efficient meetings to where these different chair people of the committees who are board members can just report. We can make quicker votes and move on. Another further question?
I'm going to go ahead and just follow up a little bit with what Timothy was talking about. So a great example is what's been going on these last 6 weeks. Because we cannot responsibly as a board have just one person putting stuff out there, things need to be voted on by the board. So when we have a rapidly changing situation and we are trying to make sure that all 15 members are weighing in on something and having an adequate vote for a majority, it becomes very problematic. And there were things that we wanted to get out sooner, but we really needed to wait until we were able to contact everybody on the board. So that's one particular issue. And the fact that we have more people wanting to get on the board is really a rather new phenomenon. So the board has functioned with fewer people historically in the past. And from what Timony has managed to find out with her research on best practices for boards, the number of members that we have is quite large for the size of our organization, ultimately.
Okay, can
All right.
people hear me now? Where were we? Board of Directors, the changes, Article 4, I believe, is where we are. So this is one section that definitely has some major changes. It's a slow reduction of our board size over time. We are going to have a maximum of 9 board members. It also expands the ability of the membership to include public members on the board. And from 1 to 2. Right now we can have 1 public member, that would mean 2. And then we would also provide some additional representation from students. So we have 3 schools in Colorado, and we would have 3 student members that would equal 1 vote. That can sometimes cause some confusion. Any questions about that?
Timony, would you just talk briefly as to the thinking behind expanding the possibility for 2 public members?
The possibility of sorry.
Yes, so what would be the point of having public members on the board? Where is the advantage to being able to have 2 public members?
You know, this is Adam's vision. Adam, could you step in and talk to that, please?
Yeah, I can talk about that. The mission of the AAC is twofold. It's to expand the profession within the state of Colorado and to educate the public about what it is that we do. So the expansion of public members, or the expansion of the ability for public members to sit on the board, for me has two considerations. One consideration is increasing the inclusion and representation of public members as a stakeholder in what the AAC does. And also it gives the board more flexibility to put a public member that has specific skill sets, such as a lawyer or a finance person, onto the board that may be difficult to source from within our professional membership, that could then give us a lot of guidance in areas of expertise. But the way that the article is written, it allows up to 2 public members. It doesn't require 2 public members, and those seats can be filled by professional members instead of public members.
All right, thank you, Adam.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Let's see, one question that came up, I think, before we left is why, if we have members that are wanting to join the board, why would we shrink that? And so the vision here is efficiency and productivity. It's with bigger groups, it's harder to be efficient and it's harder to be productive. The discussion tends to be longer. The time that it takes to get votes through seems to be bigger. I want to remind everybody and encourage everybody that if you want to be involved, there's other ways that can be done as well. So anybody can join a committee. You don't even have to be a member of the AAC to join the committee. And you can work on those. And the difference there is that there's just less votes. So if there are people who want to be involved, that's fine. We can probably get more work done with having bigger committees, yet fewer committee chairs.
And to add to that, I think the vision is that there can be committee chairs that aren't necessarily board members. As long as those committees are reporting to the board will have the information from the committee and be able to make decisions.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Let me just review this section one more time, make sure if anything else I feel needs to be clarified. Okay, next, annual business meeting, Article 6, and some changes we made there. I believe that those changes are mostly just language cleanup. Sorry, I have to switch a lot of screens. I can't wait until next year when I can just stand in front of you and see everybody's faces. So this is kind of a big rewrite of the existing bylaws here, kind of consolidating some different information pertaining to the annual business meeting. There's just some new language, and this is a place where we wanted to make sure that we could increase access to the annual business meeting by saying that you can join remotely. So Colorado is a pretty big state, and not everybody has the privilege of being able to come to Denver where we hold our meetings. And this way people can join and still stay in, say, you know, Durango or here in Gunnison or even further from Denver without having to commit to the time and expense of traveling. And then there's some rearranging done here. Any questions on this section? Okay, looks like maybe a question regarding Article 4, Section 17. Is there a way I can get clarification on that? I'm looking at the chat right now, FYI, if anybody wants to ask questions there. Okay. Next.
So before we move on,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna, I'm not sure, we're new to this webinar platform, so it is, it's taking us a little bit of a time to acclimate to it. It looks like there is a Q&A feature in this new webinar format where you can type questions in. They will remain open in the Q&A. When they're answered, we can mark them as answered, and that will close the question. So it may be better for people to direct their questions to the Q&A section. That way we can keep track of them and make sure that none of them are lost. And there is a question in the Q&A from Scott. And so the question reads, Section 17 concerns the President Emeritus title. Why did the board send out a cease and desist regarding the title before anything was approved by the membership?
Okay, yeah, good question. So President Emeritus is an honorary title, and prior to this year, it was just kind of thought that that's something that was generally understood, and just kind of based on everything that's happened and the misuse of the title that wasn't actually given or it wasn't honored to a person, we decided that maybe that needed to be actually defined in our bylaws. So we went ahead and added that. Some concerns that had come up prior to this meeting, questions from members, is what, you know, what does it add? Well, it doesn't add much. There's not a whole lot of privileges outside of being a member that the emeritus has, other than it's an honorary title. They're still allowed to join every board meeting, just like every member is, but they don't get a vote, and it's honorary. It says, hey, you have done something fantastic, the board agrees, the majority of the membership agrees, we're going to give you this title for life, and it's a big thank you. Scott's asking another question, why send the C&D before it was defined? Scott, I'll say that again, it's just kind of one of those general understandings of what President Emeritus is, and that's something that if you were to just go and start looking at different board sources, and then we would find out what President Emeritus is, and it's an honorary title, and it's something that's bestowed upon a former member. So unfortunately, we decided that now would be a good time to define that. Okay, another question.
One more question, which is how much money was spent on the cease and desist? This was answered at the last meeting. I don't recall the exact figure. Stephanie, would you remind us of the figure if you remember, or ballpark it?
I could ballpark that, because I think Mark came up with the less than $400. I think it was under $350, somewhere between $300 and $350. Okay, so to get back on track, let's go to the next bylaw changes.
Okay. So Article 9 is the last one, Timothy.
Article 9, management of the AAC, correct. This section has been updated mostly just to kind of reflect modern payment methods. So what we were doing is dispersing money over, you know, and not requiring signatures at all, because we don't really write checks anymore. So it's just, we don't rely on checks, we rely on different forms of payment, and there are no signatures required. So we just have to take that out so we're not breaking our bylaws every time we make a payment. Any questions on that?
All right. All right, so if nobody has any questions on the bylaws, I would like to move forward into, actually, I'd like to hear from Elizabeth Franz, if you are with us, if there's anything else that we're missing before we move on to our elections.
There's one more thing. Mark Costello would like a list of the subject lines that I went over. So
So really, really fast. Elizabeth, are you able to speak right now at the meeting? Can you unmute yourself?
Has she been made a panelist? There we go.
We can't hear you at this point in time if you're trying to speak. I see that you've unmuted yourself. So I've worked out with Elizabeth how we're going to record questions for her. If you select the Q&A section, and you can post your questions there. When she collects them, she's just going to mark as answered. Depending on, since it's a new system, she may or may not.
Hey, Mark, I don't know if, you know, I can't hear you. So I don't know if anyone else is having a problem hearing you. You do look like you're unmuted.
I can hear Mark.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear Mark.
Okay, so that's me. I'll see what's going on with my end. I can't.
Liz, do you want to talk with Elizabeth and just organize that? Since she can't hear me.
Okay. So Elizabeth, what Mark was saying is that you are you're continuing to collect the questions from the Q&A section. And once they've been collected from there, you are marking them as answered because they've been moved into the queue about questions. Is that correct? All right. So we are still collecting questions.
Okay, there's one more question I do want to answer. Mark Costello asking for kind of a summary of what we went over. All of this was sent out in an email, and it was the Article 3, Article 4, Article 6, and Article 9. If you want to review basically what I just said or have any other questions, you can go there and click on each one of those links, and it'll take you to a write-up and an explanation of the changes.
And that same information will actually, those links with that information will also be included in the ballots that go out to members for voting. So it is not on you to remember every little thing that Timony and Adam and I said today over these bylaws.
I've been working on it for months and I can't remember it all. So you do have a reference.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to sign off.
Okay. Actually, you can't sign off because now we're going now you're on elections.
Oh, we're there already. Good. Okay.
Already. So I just also want to put it out there. I know that because we are now past or getting very close to the 12:30 time, we are rolling over into the time that was intended for the COVID-19 town hall. So for those of you who are joining us with the intention of being part of that town hall, please bear with us. We had a few technical glitches and we're running behind. So we will get there, but we need to do our election piece first. All right, so this is our current bylaw section about vacancies. And so currently we have 5 slots that are opening. The changes that are being voted on in terms of making the board smaller would not go into effect this term. So we are still looking at electing a large board. So keep that in mind when you're doing the voting on that. In addition, other vacancies that happen in between the annual business meetings, the board can appoint people to fill those vacancies, and that happens just about every year. People have stuff come up. And so that is how that moves along. So this is the current makeup of the board. We've got 4 people who are termed out. The student reps are up for 1 year. And the students need to have their own elections to identify their representatives. And then, let's see. So, and then as you can see, the way that the board is currently composed is basically every year 5 seats, the way that it is now, 5 seats come open, so that there is never a situation where the entire board needs to be repopulated, or half of the board, so that there is some continuity in terms of knowledge and information and moving forward. All right. And I think Timony has set up with how she's going to work this, and take it away.
Yeah, so we had talked about these members being able to come on and say something. Is that going to work in this webinar platform? Mark or Adam?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I'm concentrating on 15 things right now.
I know, I'm sorry. So I wanted to be able to have these members come on and speak a little bit to their reasons and, you know, this information that we put up here. Is that going to be possible in this platform?
I think we could do that. I'm not sure. I think we can promote them to panelists briefly and then allow them to speak, and then we could put them back to attendees, I believe. If you want to send me privately the list of people to invite and the order, and I'll start inviting them.
Let's see. How about I just tell you as they come up, because I would have to go into the slides to remember that. Stacy Donaldson is up now.
Stacy, you can talk now.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. So as you can see, I've been in practice for 9 years, and I have a deep love for the medicine and for where we are going as a profession. And I was asked by a couple of members if I would run, and so here we are. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I help admin and run the Colorado Acupuncture Group on Facebook along with Steve Shomo. And so this is just a continuation of some of that work that I've been doing. And I'm done.
All right. Anything else you want to add, Stacy?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Okay, Steve
Point of
Shomo.
order. A point of order.
Yes.
There's been an anonymous motion to promote Valerie Hobbs to a panelist to help facilitate the meeting. I'm asking if there's a second.
Well, Valerie needs to be a panelist for the next part of the meeting.
Okay, so we have a second. I'm going to run a quick poll, and then depending on the results of the poll, I will take action. I'm sorry, everyone. I just saw that Valerie has declined that honor, and so we won't be having the poll, and there's no need to do anything.
Okay. All right. Did we get Steve Shomo?
No, we have not heard from Steve.
Okay. We'll just then.
Steve, you can talk now.
Okay.
Thanks, and hello everyone. As you can see from my outline there, I've been in practice for almost 15 years. I've worked in the health and fitness industry for more than 20, having served on the board in Florida as well. Moving back here from Florida in 2013, I've looked at getting more and more involved with the board as far as our profession goes. And from that standpoint, the opportunity was presented from a few of the members requesting that I be nominated for that position. And I was very interested in accepting that position and helping our profession move forward in our scope of practice, as well as the unification of what we do as a profession here in the state of Colorado.
Great. Does anybody have any specific questions for Steve? All right. Next person. Margaret Hampton.
I don't see Margaret in the attendees, so unless she's operating under a different name, then I cannot find her to allow her to speak.
Okay.
She's not. Tuesday Wasserman would like to speak up for her.
Okay, here's Tuesday.
Thanks so much. I nominated Margaret because she's been a tremendous resource in terms of the legislative work and connections moving forward. She's always willing to help. I know she couldn't be here today, but she's eager to join the board, support the board, and really help us as we move forward with our Practice Act.
Thanks, Tuesday. Kathleen Blazek.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
I want to thank you very much for having me on. And I, like myself, like several, have been nominated by a few members asking me to bring some of my experience and my expertise onto the board. And I just want to say that I'm open to doing whatever I can to help our association and to help acupuncturists in general, not just within the state of Colorado, but I think we also make an impact nationally on what we do in this state. And I hope to be able to help in any way I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Erin? I just want to say a little bit about Kathleen. I kind of asked her through some Facebook discussions to maybe think about joining the board, because I just do believe that she's kind of challenged some things. You know, I'm not that experienced of a board member, and I really appreciate you stepping up, and I think we need some really experienced people on here. So thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you, Timoni.
All right, and then Erin Murphy.
Go ahead, Erin.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. My name is Erin Murphy. I am from Florida. I might have actually met Steve a couple times. I'm not sure, because I was involved with the Florida Association as a student volunteer. I have a lot of experience in different organizations on different state, local, and national and international levels. I was looking at getting involved because I'm very passionate about our PR and how we view ourselves and how other people view our profession. Clinically, I worked a lot with lymphatic therapy inside of clinics, and I've done a lot of scientific research. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then now we have Sarah Lohmeyer.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Lohmeyer, and I would love to get involved just because I feel like it's the perfect time to get involved, because we all have so many questions and passion for expanding how people see us and how we can help, you know, with everything from the opioid crisis to helping people stay healthy and get better. And yeah, just looking to get involved and help in the most or best way possible. I don't have a lot of experience with being on boards. I have 2 children that are 11 and 8, and I've been in practice now for 3 years. So I feel like I now have the mental capacity to do that. And I would just love to learn and see what I can do to help.
All right. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
And then we have Maddie Bergner.
Maddie, go ahead.
All right. Hi. Thanks so much. I was asked by a few board members to step in and put myself in for the national liaison to the ASA. My background is in public policy and Chinese language. I was working both legislatively and then also in private lobbying before I moved into the field as an acupuncturist. I would love to bring all my experience to the board of the AAC and look forward to working with you all. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Maddie. All right, so that's the end of the people who have gone ahead and thrown their hat in the ring. Timony, if you'd like to continue.
Yeah, thank you everybody for wanting to speak a little bit. So all of our members know who they are voting for. There will be a poll going out, and there's a couple of polls, one to vote on our bylaws and the other to vote in the new board members. So any other questions for any of these potential members? Okay, right. I'm not seeing any questions come up.
Okay.
Okay, time to move on to what's next.
Okay.
Just letting you know, Timony, we're gonna let Elizabeth manage the question and answer. She should be all set up right now to be able to speak. So just giving you a heads up there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm still not hearing anything from Elizabeth. Is she able to speak?
Or like, come here. You want to do some yard work with me?
All right. If all the people that we opened up as panelists to speak as candidates, if they could mute your microphone. We are not voting here on the panelists. Everybody who is a member will receive a ballot to vote, and you will have until midnight on Monday, the 27th, to vote both for the board, incoming board members, and then also on the proposed changes to the bylaws. All right, Mark, can you tell me what's going on with Elizabeth? Because I'm not hearing anything.
She's all set. You can move on.
Okay, I'm just waiting for the question and answer period because we need to move on to the COVID town hall.
I think it sounds like a lot of the questions have been answered. Do we want to move to the town hall and then realize that some of these questions we can answer in the future?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And then I'm seeing a technical question.
All questions have been answered at this point from Elizabeth.
Okay, Do we have a max number for the webinar? Oh, 500. Okay, super. All right, so for everybody who is joining us just now for the COVID-19 town hall, thank you for your patience for these last 15 minutes. We just kind of went over on the annual meeting. For those who have been here for the annual meeting, thank you, and I hope that you continue to stay. And then in terms of running the town hall, I'm going to hand that over to Casey since she organized all of this. And Tuesday is asking a really good question. Did everybody get the new link? We don't have anybody waiting out expecting the town hall elsewhere, do we?
Point of order.
Okay.
I'm seeing a motion in here that may have gotten missed in the chat from Valerie Hobbs.
Okay.
Can we have her speak? I can't find it now.
I think Valerie is a panelist, yes?
Valerie's not a panelist right now, but she can be made a panelist if need be.
She should be a panelist because she is speaking at the town hall. And we are rolling into the town hall.
We're changing to a different webinar for the town hall, and she will be made a panelist in that.
Okay, so we're doing another webinar. Okay.
Okay, here's Valerie's motion. I'm gonna go ahead and read it.
Okay.
Whereas stay-at-home orders by counties have an earlier date for acupuncture offices to open with best practices than the May 1st date mandated by DORA under our license. Whereas acupuncturists as small business owners have been adversely affected with little support by work stoppage. Whereas acupuncturists are trained and nationally certified in infection control as a requirement of licensure. The membership of the AAC urges the AAC board to send a letter to DORA asking for DORA to bring their guidelines in line with local health departments. Hold on, scrolling. If you have closed the meeting, then this is out of order. Okay, Valerie, are you still here? We're back on. Can we
move that to the next one?
We really need to move that because people are gonna, we don't have everybody here. I think that we can add that at the town hall. So has there been emailed another link for the next webinar?
Yes, so
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to end this meeting and start the town hall meeting.
Can I get a second?
We have a second in the chat.
Okay. If we can do a poll, all in favor of moving on to the town hall meeting, all questions will be continued to be answered. Okay, it looks like everybody wants us to move on. So we're moving on. Please take the link from the chat or check your email, and we're moving into the webinar for the town hall on the COVID-19. Thank you everyone for your patience with all of this today.